Hello, my name is Kevin Pearies. Today, I'll be talking about reflection and the consequences of reflection in an optical system. I mentioned this in my previous video, but this really cannot be said enough. One of the biggest points of failure in a network today, in a fiber optic network today, are connectors. Well over 85% of the maintenance issues on existing systems have to do with connectors. When it comes to connectors, we have two critical parameters that we look at: insertion loss and reflection. In this video, we'll be concentrating more on reflection, but it is important to understand the difference between the two from a high level. Insertion loss is really easy to understand. It's how much light are we losing going across that connection, across that splice. So this point here, we might have, say, around negative 15 dBm of light arriving at the connector. And then by the time it transitions through the connector to the other side, we might have something like minus 15.5 dBm. So less light. So that's roughly 0.5 dB of loss. Reflection, on the other hand, is the percentage of light that returns back to your transmitter. We want to minimize this as much as possible. And where does most reflection come from? Connectors. What causes reflection at connectors? Air gaps. Anytime there's a change in material type, so if you're going from glass back over to air, back to glass, you're going to have some sort of reflection. A fusion splice is fused, so there's no air gap there. So there's very little reflection. Connectors, though, have an air gap. If you ever stood in front of a window and it's a bright sunny day outside and you look at the window, you can see your reflection in the window. It's a small percentage of your reflection, but you can still see it. You can see that reflection because of the air on the other side of that glass. We're having a similar issues when it comes to connectors. If you look at the end face of a connector, we can see it's broken up into 4 zones. So we're really concerned about any contamination that falls within this entire contact area. This is where the fiber physically touches. So if we have any material in there that has any size, it's going to cause core separation. So we want to make sure when we inspect it that we understand what's going on in the end face there. So when we look at the actual end face itself and what it looks like, if I were to have some particles of a larger size, there's a chance that these larger particles have some sort of mass to it. And if they have some sort of mass to it, when you try to mate your two connectors together, it keeps it separated further apart than it needs to be. And this can lead to higher reflection. So you want to minimize that as much as possible. As we transition to higher and higher speeds, we're going to start having more and more issues with reflection. So I'm going from the traditional GPON to XGS-PON, and even further, as we increase our bit rates, we might start seeing increased sensitivity to reflection as you get into these higher bit rates. So it's important to inspect your end face of your connector to ensure that they're clean and that there's no debris on the end face, because that debris can increase your reflection, which really will affect your system performance if it's contaminated. So these are things that you really need to understand when you're looking at connectors. So it's important to understand that any debris that really lands inside of that contact area will cause core separation. But as you clean or inspect those connections and reduce the air gap within that fiber and make sure that the end face is clean, you'll start to improve the performance and the amount of reflection that you get back on your connection. And it's also important to understand the relationship between reflection and loss or power. So if I were to look at, say, a connector here, so I'm going to go ahead and use my down camera here. So here's what I have. I have this physical connection right here. So we'll say this is part of my network. And let's say that I'm at my ONT in the side of the house. So I unplugged my drop from my ONT and I plug it into my power meter. And this is one of the first things you'll do is you'll turn on your power meter and you'll measure the light levels coming into this ONT. And in this particular situation, we're coming in at minus 17.48 dBm, which is good light for your ONT. So what you'll do probably normally is you'll take this and then normal it back up thinking everything's fine. But in reality, you can have good power but bad reflection. So it's almost like you can have good water pressure, but that doesn't mean the water is of good quality or tastes good, right? Those are two different measurement types. Those are two different things to look at. When you're measuring with a power meter, you're only measuring power. You're not measuring reflection or ORL going across that fiber. So unless you have an OTDR or IOLM, you won't see the reflection of this connection. So what is your best tool? Your best tool is going to be fiber inspection. So I have a fiber inspection probe here, and I'm essentially going to connect and look at this connection right here. So we can say that this is our terminal, right? So this is our terminal. This is our drop that goes to our ONT here. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug this, and I'm going to go ahead and look at the end face of this connection here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and look at the end face. I'm going to go ahead and plug in. So now with my fiber plugged in, I'm going to go ahead and inspect this connection here. So let me go ahead and switch over to my test set here so you get a better view of it. I'll hit this button here to start the inspection. So it's going to auto center, auto focus. And then we can see here that we have quite a bit of contamination going on with this connection. Now, our power meter said it was a good connection, power-wise, but it wasn't looking at reflection. And this is what contributes to noise. This is what affects your optical signal noise ratio in a high bandwidth optical system. So our best tool to qualify for reflection, if you don't have an OTDR or other advanced optical test tools, is to use your fiber inspection probe to inspect the end face and then to clean that end face to ensure that you have the best quality of signal for your customers. So to complete this, I'll do a quick little one click. So I will just disconnect from there. I will do a quick end face cleaning there and follow your practices for the best method to clean your connections. And then now if I push this button here, transition back over to here, we have a much cleaner connection. And so it really is important to use your fiber inspection probe and your power meter together. Your power meter will tell you whether or not you have good power levels, while your fiber inspection probe will help you qualify the quality of your end face, helping to more ensure that you have a good connection across your network and that you've minimized the amount of loss and reflection going across this connector as much as possible. And with that, my name is Kevin Pearies. Thank you very much.